I'm with author James Nicol and we're going to ask him some questions. What made you want to become an author?
It's like one of those tiny microphones. It was lots of things, really. Mostly, I think it was the books I read growing up that I really loved, that were like my escape from the real world, and like my armour against the world as well. And I thought if I could write a story like that for a child that maybe felt like me, that would be a lovely thing to do. And all the amazing books that I had read as well were really inspiring. And also my two grandmas, who I spent a lot of time with growing up, who were really good storytellers. They could just, they would never have written their stories down, but they could tell you a fantastic story that just kept you absolutely gripped, and make you laugh and make you feel scared. So those were the main things really that made me want to tell stories.
You write fantasy fiction for children. What do you like the best about the genre?
It's the being able to do anything, and go anywhere and just make it up. I like reading historical fiction, but I'd have to do so much research to tell the story that I think it might take some of the fun out of it. Sometimes I do bits of research to kind of inspire different things in the stories, but mostly I can just dream it up, and that's really wonderful.
Who or what inspires your writing the most?
I think now that I've got several books published, it's the readers, or the readers I imagine when I'm writing the story. I think when I first started, I was kind of writing the story for myself as a child, and I still do a little bit, but now that I come to events like what we've had today, and school visits and book signings elsewhere, and I meet readers, I think that's what comes to mind when I'm writing the story. I have a much better idea of the people that are reading my book, and so they're sort of there when I'm writing, in the back of my mind.
Your book's main characters are mainly females. What do you like about a strong female lead character?
I think it's a really tricky question. I think it's to do with just the fact that I want to show everybody that anybody can achieve anything. Even in a fantasy setting, there's setbacks that people face, and yet all my characters, mostly the heroines, always overcome something, and I think that's a really important thing to see. But I think the reason I mostly choose girls as the main characters is probably because of my grandmothers, and having been brought up by very strong women. And also, I heard somebody talking about this recently. When I was little, the most powerful people in the country were the Prime Minister, who at that time was a woman, and the monarch, who was a queen. So I didn't grow up in a time where I didn't see women doing powerful things, which I think isn't always the case. So it never really occurred to me that women couldn't be fantastically brilliant and wonderful. So I think we should pass that around as much as we can.
Your latest book, The Cloud Thief, includes the themes such as climate change. Why do you think it is important to talk about environmental issues, and when do you think it's right to do something wrong?
So the Cloud Thief does have some environmental messages in there, and I think the main thing is that, like in the Cloud Thief, it's going to be young people that really come up with the solutions and make things a lot better. I don't generally write books that have like a message in them, although there are always messages in stories. That's just what we're doing as storytellers. I think it's more obvious in The Cloud Thief because of the link with the climate change. But I don't always set out. It certainly wasn't the plan when I set out to tell the story that it was all going to be about the changing climate, but that was a theme that sort of came up as I explored the story. And when is it right to do something wrong? I think if it's something that isn't going to hurt another person, but it's going to help somebody, that's probably when it's right to do something wrong. But that's a really tricky question. I feel like if I give the wrong answer, the police are going to come in and arrest me. Helping somebody as long as you're not hurting another person by doing it, I think that's probably when it's right to do something wrong.
What was your favourite book as a child?
It was The 101 Dalmatians by Dodie Smith, and it was a book that one of my nanas had bought for me from a jumble sale. She loved jumble sales and charity shops. And I was the best reader at the time that she got it for me, and I think partly that was due to the types of reading scheme books that we had to read at school. And so my teachers thought that I wasn't really a natural or very good reader. And then my nana gave me this copy of The 101 Dalmatians, and something about the story just absolutely grabbed my attention, captured my imagination. And I remember it being the first book that I read all by myself, from cover to cover, without having to ask anybody what a word was. And I read it quite quickly for me. I think I read it in about a week, 10 days. And when I'd finished reading it, I felt like I'd climbed to the top of a mountain, and that I could do anything. And then quickly from there, I discovered the Narnia books and things like that, and I couldn't stop. And I think it's true that there's a book out there that can turn anybody into a reader, and we're so blessed that there are so many books available. And I think if anybody's listening and they think, well, I haven't found the book that's really caught me and made me into a reader, then just keep looking and you'll find it. I'm 99.9% sure of it.
Do you want to give us a hint about your next book?
It's always really tricky because I've not even started to write it properly at this stage. I'm just really still working out the idea and the outline of the story. And sometimes if I tell people too much about a story before I've started to write it, one, I think in my head it sounds like rubbish. I start to tell and I think, oh, that sounds like the worst story ever. And two, so much will change between now and the point that it becomes an actual book on a shelf in a bookshop or a library that you wouldn't recognise it from what I tell you today. But what I can tell you is that it will definitely have magic in it, and it will definitely have brave, heroic children as the main characters, and there might be a little hint of my ancestral ice cream makers in there as well, but we'll have to see.
Thank you for answering my questions.
Thank you very much.
That's a lot of books.